Well, joining us now in our Cape Town studio is CNBC Africa's Svetlana Doneva. She was at the court this morning to see what happened there. Interesting that it was at the Labour Court, Svetlana. How did it all develop?
Hi, Alec. The reason why it was in the Labour Court is because Marcel Golding is not disputing the fact that he bought the shares. He's disputing the fact that his employers did not have the right to suspend him in the terms that they did. The basic case that he put forward on Friday morning was that HCI was not his employer. His employers were ETV and Sabido, the two subsidiaries of the company. And he said that HCI had overridden the boards of those two companies and had behaved unlawfully and unfairly in suspending him and calling him to a disciplinary hearing. Now, what happened this morning was Judge Steenkamp delivered his ruling, and he found that HCI was in fact his employer, and this was because Marcel Golding draws a monthly salary of just over 480,000 Rand, that's monthly, from HCI. So on those grounds, he found that the suspension wasn't unlawful and that HCI had every right to suspend him and to discipline him.
What happens from here? What's the next step in this saga as far as the courts are concerned? Svetlana, are you hearing me? Well, unfortunately, we're going to keep trying to get hold of Svetlana, but let me just, before we lose sight of what's going on here, and you did hear the word pathetic being used by Tumi and by Cynthia Skuman a little bit earlier. It's pathetic if you allow the court and what's going on in the courts to cloud what is really at issue here. Marcel Golding, it appears, wants to bring to the public's attention the fact that ETV, which is a broadcaster that reaches 12 million people in South Africa, free to air, is or has been asked by one Eunice Sheikh, who is a director on the board of HCI, to do certain things that would put people like Jacob Zuma, the president of this country, in a good light. Indeed, amongst the issues that were raised in his affidavit by Marcel Golding was that Eunice Sheikh, 4 days after the public protector found that Zuma had acted rather inappropriately by spending $20 million on his home in KwaZulu-Natal. 4 days later, Eunice Sheikh wanted ETV's main news bulletin to run with the main story of Zuma opening a new dam. Now, in a news sense, that really is very unlikely to have made it in the first place. Eunice Sheikh is the brother of one Shabir Sheikh, who was sentenced to prison and was described in the court as having a generally corrupt relationship with President Jacob Zuma. He was described by the public prosecutor in that way. That puts it into context. Svetlana, the question is, what happens next?
Well, Alec, the disciplinary hearing is going to go ahead this week, and so is the AGM of the company. Now, what Marcel Golding said on Friday is that he thinks that due to the faction of the board, they want to get him out before the AGM takes place. Because if the disciplinary hearing finds him guilty, then he won't be up for re-election on the HCI board. And that is what that is basically the reason why he was trying to stop the disciplinary hearing from taking place this week. Now, whether he's taken off the board permanently remains to be seen when the actual hearing takes place. But either way, it looks like interesting times ahead for HCI. And of course, in this court hearing, they did not deal with the political interference allegations. Safe to say that Judge Steenkamp did touch on them, and he said that they were not without merit. Because, of course, in Marcel Golding, in that 57-page court document that he submitted, he had examples of SMSs that he'd received from various ministers, from SACTU, the trade union, which is the biggest shareholder in HCI. So the judge said that it was not without merit, and he said it was a big cause for concern that political figures are interfering in public news broadcasting.
Well, two more
yeah.
Two more pieces of perspective here. The one is that 24 million Rand that Marcel Golding spent on buying into the Ellie's shares compares with an 18 billion rand market cap of HCI. It's a drop in the ocean. And the other issue was that in his affidavit, he said he did offer, when they were starting to use that as a stick to beat him, to actually pay for those shares in his own right, which, of course, as a billionaire, he's perfectly able to do.
Yeah, he did. And the other thing that he argued was that he actually bought the shares around the middle of the year. He disclosed them to the board on the 6th of August. And it was only on the 14th of October, just before the AGM, that they actually summoned him to disciplinary hearing and suspended him. So his whole argument is, if it was such a big transgression for buying the shares, why did you wait 4 months to suspend me?
Good point. CNBC Africa's reporter Svetlana Doneva, who was down at the Labour Court this morning, giving us the latest details there.